Meet the Mets, meet the Mets. Step right up and greet the Mets. Bring your kiddies, bring your wife. Guaranteed to have the time of your life, because the Mets are really socking the ball, knocking those home runs over the wall. East side, west side, everybody's coming down to meet the METS Mets of New York town. Oh, the butcher and the baker and the people on the streets, where do they go?
What's up, Mets fans? Welcome back to another Mets Hot Stove Live right here on the channels, all of our channels, Mets Roundtable Podcast. Of course, 3/4 of us. Hayden will join us at some point. Hopefully soon we'll get the crew back together. But we do have Nelson and Chris here today talking about some Mets topics. We got some interesting topics to talk about today, and we're going to get started by saying what up to everybody on the roundtable. Chris, how you doing, buddy?
Doing well. I appreciate you for hosting this. Like I said, and like we talked about before we went live, I'm not in my usual setup. So if anybody can't hear me at any point, make sure you all let me know and I'll try to get readjusted. But always good to talk about the Mets. 2 new videos up on my channel. One was talking about a hypothetical 2025 offseason trade for the Mets. I was up late recording, got a little ahead of myself, and I figured that'd be a fun little video to do. And the second one, most recently, it was premiering around 3:30 today, was talking about my updated opinions on the New York Mets DH situation. So if you haven't checked that out on the channel, make sure you go check that out, subscribe to the channel, all that good stuff, and let's have a fun conversation, boys.
Absolutely. Nelson, how you doing, buddy?
Not too bad. It's been freaking, I live in the North Pole now, so it's like freezing cold and about to get dumped with snow, and my internet hardly works anymore. So yeah, I haven't haven't been able to upload too many videos this week. My internet's been in and out. Sorry I missed the show on Monday, I believe it was. But good to be here. Hopefully don't have any issues tonight. And let's talk some Mets, even though there really isn't much news to talk about, but we always figure it out.
Yeah, absolutely. We find stuff. We have to dig deep into the internet searches to find Mets rumors and news and fake news. Even if you want to talk about fake news, I mean, why not? I mean, what the hell? I mean, it's not like the teams or the players or the agents are giving us anything to talk about. So, David Stearns had a conversation with our favorite reporter, Andy Martino. He was in the Dominican Republic doing the graduation thing and everything like that. So that's always a nice time. It's always nice to see what the Mets do internationally when it comes to the Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico, and amongst other countries as well, where they have set up all these training facilities and basically have a factory of players or guys that they can help them graduate high school and maybe get some college and credits and get into college and all that fun stuff. And of course, baseball, which is what we care about here. So the first things first with David Stearns quotes. I'm not going to go over the 57 quotes that he talked about. So I'm going to ask each one of you, what quote really caught your eye from the David Stearns conversation with Andy Martino the other day? Nelson, I'll start with you. What quote really did catch your eye?
I'm not gonna lie, I didn't listen to the whole thing. I caught bits and pieces on Twitter. I guess I'm just interested in the fact that he just really seems to be dedicated to committing to playing these kids. So I know a lot of fans don't love it, but he really wants to leave spots open for these guys to play and to develop, and it shows in the strategy that we've used this offseason. He's really leaving the door open for guys that are in the minors and pretty close to being ready to get called up, and Drew Gilbert being one of them. Acuna is obviously on the 40-man, so he could be close as well. Jet Williams is knocking on the door, like, and then there's the pitching prospects too. So it's just interesting to see how committed he is to really
Yeah.
seeing what he has in these kids, and it's not a bad thing. I know some people don't love it, people don't have the patience for it, but I don't have an issue with it. We may not win as many games that way, but I think for the long-term future of this team, it's a good way to go.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, the long term, I don't think anybody's really complaining about. I think everybody understands the long term aspects or plan that Stearns and company is going to have for this team. I guess it's the short term where people are like, why am I buying a ticket to a Mets game in 2024 if they're not really doing what actually they are doing what they said they were going to do. But, what's the incentive of going? Yeah, I like baseball, but am I going to spend $60 on a ticket and then watch the Mets uh, lose? So Chris, I'm gonna pop off for about 5 minutes. For some reason, somebody's knocking on my door. But Chris, what quote are you that opened up your eyes with David Stearns when it came to Andy Martino? I'll be right back, guys.
Yeah, and like I said, I've talked about this on my channel numerous times, and I'll save the quote about him foreshadowing the DH in terms of going in-house or getting that outsider. But I think the two quotes for me that resonated from David Stearns was one saying that anybody that's in the upper levels of the minor league system right now, right? If you're starting the season off in 2024, you're automatically a phone call away. And he actually name dropped guys like Acuna and Drew Gilbert and leaving that door open for a potential debut sooner rather than later, right? If someone goes down, an injury, they're a phone call away. And he said that he'd like to give them a little bit more time, but that's the reality. So I think that's one, first and foremost. But two, um, I think was the fact that he said he's not trying to win the offseason in terms of the headlines. Now, this is obvious. We all know that. Like us as Mets fans objectively know with the signings that we've gotten so far in this offseason, we understand the situation. We're not naive. It's a bridge year. We understand that. They're holding out the flexibility to have future power in the off seasons to come. But the fact that he's even saying this on camera and in the public eye is something that obviously he wants to sort of continue to stress to us as Mets fans because like I said, he doesn't have a Twitter account, right? And good for him because he really shouldn't, but he knows what the Mets fans are saying, right? Steve Cohen does have a Twitter account. He knows what the Mets fans are saying. And I think patience, for lack of a better term, is what David Stearns continued to stress. He's not trying to win this offseason in terms of the big names. That can happen. First of all, that already has happened in past off seasons. And where did that lead where did that lead us? We got Justin Max Scherzer, Starling Marte, Canna, Escobar back to back to back 2 off seasons ago. And where did that lead us? That's not going to help us win ball games, objectively speaking, right? It might getting that premier talent, but that's not the end all be all. So, like I said, we all know this is obvious. Nothing that David Stearns really said in that interview is out of the ordinary. That's what we kind of had to sort of go off of based on the moves so far. But now we see situations developing in terms of him stressing the point of remaining committed to winning and playing meaningful baseball in September and October. The goal is to win, right? And of course, as president of baseball operations, he's not going to say anything but that. He's not going to sell the fans on a bridge year. He's not going to say we're tanking for 2025. He can't say that. But when we talk about the next topic in terms of the DH and the perfect fits for the DH, given what he said in the quotes and holding him accountable to those statements, that's when we can sort of start to use those quotes, not against him, right? I never want to use these quotes against the Mets front office and their personnel because I trust their plan, but let's see if they remain committed to their words and, via their actions. So a lot of good stuff. What caught my eye, I think first and foremost was Andy Martino sort of taking a little bit of I guess a rod. He's throwing the fishing hook out there and baiting David Stearns. And he said, David Stearns, this is your first off season. It's wrapping up. It's pretty much wrapped up. He made it seem like David Stearns was done making moves. And he seemed very squirrely when he started saying that. Like basically alluding to the fact that David Stearns' offseason is pretty much done while we're sitting here on January 17th, whenever he gave that interview, and the offseason is all but done. And there's a lot of moves left to be made, or a lot of moves left to be had. So I thought that was hilarious. The whole entire interview with Martino, he just looked very squirrely. Like, he looked very uncomfortable. These guys all see his reports. They see how outlandish sometimes they are, and they know how he talks about this team in such a subjective manner. So I thought that was the funniest thing of it all. So, but yeah, good interview, man. I enjoyed listening.
Yeah, I do apologize. I run it out for a second, but I heard most of what you said, Chris. Yeah, and I was gonna bring that up about the Andy Martino and the Stearns. It just looked like if Stearns wasn't a nerdy, guy that like is not a bully, I think he would punch Martino in the face. Like, it just seemed like it didn't feel like he was ready to like give anything to Martino. Like, he just didn't want to do anything when it came to Martino. Like, we know how bad Martino is when it comes to reporting, and he'll do anything he can to shoot down any good vibes when it comes to the Mets. And you know what's funny? When I know Martino really tried to get Stearns to say, well, you're done, right? You're done this offseason, right? You want me to be right? Like, it seemed like every question he asked was something that Andy Martino reported just to get that report right, because it was Andy Martino's opinion for the most part that they're basically done. And that might be true. And maybe it's just a lucky guess by Martino, or, he just, or Stearns, or he's going to be wrong. We just have to wait and see. But the quote, I'm going to put a 2-part quote that I screenshotted that I think is going to probably pissed off a lot of Mets fans. And it starts like this. It says, we should be competing for a playoff spot. We should be building a team that has the ability to make the playoff. And this is the point where you were just talking about. He said, we should be building a team that has the ability to make the playoffs. So that tells me that they're still building. Like, he could have said, oh, we have a team that has the ability to make the playoffs. He didn't say that. He says we're still building. So that tells me that, common sense says they need a bullpen arm. They might need a DH. Maybe they'll get another rotation arm. And that's something that kind of caught my eye. And then he also says, and that's certainly the expectation for our team. He also said, I believe that we'll be able to meet that expectation. So he believes in his philosophy and his plan, even if we don't, or some Met fans don't, or most Met fans don't. And he also said, and we should have exciting baseball in September and October for our fans to be proud of. I know Met fans probably cried laughter in tears and just laughed out loud when we heard that, because we're not used to that, right? But I know one thing. David Stearns has a plan, and his philosophy that he believes in it. And nobody's going to change that. And I think the problem that we have is, or at least some Met fans, is that we're not used to our organization and our front office have a plan. Usually it's a plan that might go one way or the other. And if they get pressure from the fan base, they might do one thing, i.e. Javi Baez or something like that. Javi Baez type of trade where the Mets really weren't good enough, but they felt the pressure from the fan base. Oh, we needed a bat. And then they started to hear on Twitter at the time, Javi Baez, bring Lindor's friend here. And then it happened. You can't run an organization like that, because 9 out of 10 times the fans are wrong. Let's be honest. We are usually wrong. We're emotional nutcases that love the team, and you can't be emotional running an organization and play, especially with a player acquisition, because it's going to bite you in the ass 9 times out of 10. So what he said here is the fact that what everybody who gave their quote about, or what he said about any type of information to like try to figure things out, what he's going to do, is that David Stearns has a plan. I think we can all agree on that. And I think that's important to realize, that he has a plan. And I really can't complain about a guy that has a plan. Now, the plan will work. That's yet to be determined. But if it does work, well, he'll look like a genius, at least this year. Because if it works out this year, then he did something right going into a 2025 season that we're expected to do a lot in the offseason. Yeah, Chris.
Yeah, and I was just gonna say, just to add on to that fact, like when you talk about a plan, right? An organization that really hasn't had a plan in the last couple of off seasons going into the regular season, like you just said, but also this plan, quote unquote, that we're talking about David Stearns with right now is not the end all be all in 2024. We're not going to see this plan come to fruition until at least early as 2025, maybe even beyond that. So I think a lot of patience has to be involved here. And MEZ said it in the chat. Like, we, at this point, whether you want to accept it or not, we should be comfortable in terms of this season being a reset season while still being able to compete for a back end of the wild card spot. Like, those two factors can coexist at the same time, and it can be done in congruency. You can hit the reset button on your organization and retool, quote unquote, and you can also remain competitive with these 1-year deal signings that we've been basically accumulating in Bader, Jorge Lopez, Manaya, Severino, and all the depth pieces that have come from the start of the offseason until now. Like, that's a realistic expectation. So I'm happy David Stearns is being transparent about it.
Yeah, I think he should be, honestly. You know, we might not like everything he says, and it might seem like he sounds snobby because he's a smart guy. Like, I mean, it's hard. I don't think he's Heim Bloom. Can he be? Yeah, he could be a disaster like Boston. Let's just hope that's not the case, but we'll never know until it happens. Yeah, I tend to agree. And what we're going to talk about now in the next topic, and Chris, I want to start with you because you did a video about this earlier today in a premiere video at 3:30. And if you haven't checked it out, please do. I know he's gonna, give up a little bit of what he said in that video, but he really does go into detail a lot about all the DH possibilities and his favorite, which I guess he'll break the news here. If you don't know already, he said it 100 times on his show, his lives, and in the interstate, and the hot stove and all that. But Chris, let me start with you. The DH situation is probably the most, I guess, popular amongst Met fans because it was one day it was Turner, one day it was Martinez. Lastly, it's been Soler, and now it's been very quiet. And now Vientos has been popping up again with, I guess, hints from David Stearns, I would guess. But in your opinion, your choice of a DH, who would it be, and where do you think David Stearns is going to go?
Yeah, it's basically foreshadow versus my preference, right? All of David Stearns' comments in that Andy Martino video basically allude to the fact that I can pretty much foreshadow him going with Mark Vientos. If I had to put my money on any sort of DH at an opening day, it's going to be Mark Vientos. He said the quote, us as Mets fans in this New York market, I know it's hard, something to the effect, it's not the direct quote, but he said, we need to let these young players make mistakes, and there's going to be hiccups along the way at the major league level. And that directly, most likely, applies to the DH. Listen, we're not guaranteed to sign a DH this offseason. They have not said that whatsoever. We've been hearing bullpen, and we haven't heard much outside of these Jorge Soler rumors, which are gaining immense steam now within the Mets fan base on Twitter for one reason or another, due to Robert Murray's report, I believe on January 9th, as well as Hector Gomez for whatever his word is worth, right? And I dropped the video today, and I basically said that I can foreshadow Mark Vientos being that DH. And would I be complaining about Mark Vientos getting those at-bats in a reset year? Absolutely not. I think he's a capable power hitter. But when we talk about this lineup being one where we want to compete with and play meaningful baseball games in September and October with, Mark Vientos is not going to give you the best shot at that. He's not going to be that protection for Pete Alonso, regardless if he hits 20, 25, or 30 home runs like I can project him out to be. He's going to be a pretty decent power hitter. His exit velocity is there. The strikeout rate obviously is there as well, but he can hit home runs. He hit 9 home runs in a short sample size last season. So if you project that over the course of 162, we can pretty confidently say he'll be up there between 20 to 25 home runs. But he's just not that factor, that it factor in terms of slotting right behind Pete Alonso and scaring another pitcher in terms of not pitching around Pete Alonso and giving Pete Alonso a pitch to hit. And like I said, my preference all along, Carlos is saying in the chat, he knows exactly where I'm going with this. With David Stearns' comments, two things remaining consistent. It being a bridge year, but also remaining competitive. I think that this is the perfect setup for a Justin Turner reunion because he is a complete hitter at the major league level and has been doing so from the start of his career. The sample size is there. He's played 10 seasons since 2011. In 10 of those seasons since 2011, he's appeared in 100 plus games. That's something you don't get with a Jorge Soler. Jorge Soler doesn't play 100 plus games consistently. He's injury prone. Something that you also get with Justin Turner is a higher batting average for what it's worth, right? You get lower home run percentages, you get the lower home run rate, but sometimes being that protection behind Pete Alonso doesn't necessarily mean you have to hit the long ball. It means you have to scare the other pitcher. If runners are in scoring position and you walk Pete Alonso, Justin Turner's the guy that's going to scare the opposing pitcher because he can hit gap to gap and drive 2 to 3 runs in with a bases clearing double, right? That's what we need. And I think Justin Turner on a 1-year deal certainly fits that mold. And so I said it again, I'll keep saying it. Give me Justin Turner. I'm not enamored with Jorge Soler's consistency, and I'm not even convinced that he's going to sort of lower his expectations in terms of the contract, whether it's AAV or the number of years, because the report still is 3 years for Jorge Soler. I don't want the Mets to handcuff themselves for a guy that's a strict DH, has no defensive capabilities, and is not even a lock to hit 30 home runs because he doesn't see the field consistently in terms of injuries. I rest my case. Give me Justin Turner, but I would not be surprised to see Mark Vientos.
Yeah. All right, Nelson, your turn. Your choice, and then what do you think Stearns is going to do?
I mean, my choice all along has been to get a DH. I've said it nonstop for months. At this point, I mean, I want Justin Turner, but it really doesn't matter to me. As long as you get one of these guys, whether it's Turner, Martinez, Soler, any of them is going to improve this team. Like you can't. It's hard to argue that, right? Yeah, Soler has some injury concerns. Honestly, they all do. Given their Martinez and Turner's age, like there's injury concerns there. But Soler probably isn't taking the contract we're looking to give out. It's unless I mean, it's hard because all of these, not all, but a lot of these main guys are still out there, right? So you have no idea what's going on with this market. I have no idea if the market's dropping on these guys, if that's what Stearns is waiting for to actually do something to see where stuff falls as far as what some of these guys go, and then where the markets for everybody else goes. I don't know what's going on. I do think though that unless the price range falls where he wants it to, he is fully okay with just letting Mark Vientos roll with the job. Like, I think if the price isn't right, if he doesn't get these guys the number he wants, the number of years he wants, then he's fine with letting Vientos take the job. And I'm fine with that strategy. Like, even though I do prefer to sign a DH because I'm not fully sold on Vientos, I think it makes sense given the plan and the goal for this year. If the terms of the contract don't work, then just let the kids play, let them figure it out. Maybe give Marte some burn at DH as well to get him off his feet, and go from there. At this point, anybody I think will outperform Vogelback. Like, that's not a high bar. Like, you can, I think, barring some real bad luck, you're going to get more production out of DH than you did last year. You almost by default, right? So I'll take it. I'll take any of these guys. I prefer Justin Turner as well. Like, I think the Interstate Mets report, we've kind of been just on the Justin Turner bandwagon this whole time. But lately there's no smoke. There's no, honestly, other than Soler, there hasn't been any smoke with the Mets and anyone that of worth really recently. So I don't know. We might in fact be done. Maybe Martino is right. Maybe this is the team we're gonna roll with. Like, but you never know. Like, there's still a month till spring training. And even during the spring, you can still sign guys. So we'll figure it out. For whatever reason, this market is not moving. Like, you still got all these guys out there. The starting pitchers are still out there. A lot of the bullpen guys are still out there. The DHs are still out there. So I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. I hope we do sign someone for DH because I'm dying to get a real DH here. But if not, then let Vientos do his thing, and let's hope he shows that power that I mean, we know he has. He just doesn't. I don't know. His game lacks something for me, but maybe I hope I'm wrong, and I hope he outperforms what I think he can do.
Can I just say something to drive my point home about Justin Turner over Soler? And great points by Nelson. Obviously, the thing that attracts Soler, right, when you look at Soler, is the recent power numbers, especially in 2023, right? But what I'm saying is that given the lack of consistency and given the injury history in terms of the games played and having that lack of sample size, he's only turned out, right? When we talk about Soler, people are like, well, he's going to hit you 30 plus home runs. That's why you have to put him right behind Pete Alonso. He's only turned out 2 of his first 10 seasons in his career. He's only turned out 30 plus home runs, only 2 of them. So I don't understand if people just don't look at his career numbers, if they don't look at the games played in his career and they just don't understand that. Because, like, if you look at his Savant page from 2023, and this is why I think a lot of the smoke behind Soler's recency bias, his ex-WOBA numbers, his expected slugging, the hard hit rate, the exit velocity, all that stuff, the advanced metrics plays really well. And he played in a large amount of games last season. But are we going to see that consistently and see those 30 home runs consistently play through on a long-term deal, like a 3-year deal? I don't think so. And I'm not willing to take that chance and handcuff the Mets to Jorge Soler for the full 3 years. Like I said, if we are taking a shot on Jorge Soler and he's willing to do a Teoscar Hernandez type deal for 1 year, maybe a little bit of a higher AAV, that is in the same realm of what Justin Turner probably is going to make for me. And that's what would attract me more. But also, don't sleep on Justin Turner's power. But that's what I had to say about Jorge Soler. And that's the only pushback that I have. Look at his career numbers. The consistency has not been there.
Breaking news, fellas. Steve Cohen has broke his Twitter silence to reply to Mike Puma.
Oh, wow.
Uh-oh.
It's not anything serious. Mike Puma posted, anybody notice how buff Steve Cohen was looking on the page of today's post? And Steve Cohen replied, I'm hoping the comments will be diplomatic, Mike. So he broke his Twitter silence to
God, that's gonna piss off Met fans. I gotta see the comments. I have to look at the comments.
He's always lurking.
That's the first thing he said since September 27th of 2020.
Everybody's talking about Soler in the comments. It's hilarious. Soler. Hey, how about Soler?
He's always lurking on Twitter, man.
Everybody's gonna tell him to sign whoever because that's what they do.
So somebody says sign Soler for your season ticket holders.
He's always lurking on Twitter. I want to say, like, I've seen
lurking.
numerous people come out there and like post a screenshot of Steve Cohen following them on Twitter out of the blue, and it's like he's always looking and seeing what people have to say. But that's funny. I gotta go check that out.
I can see him in his book room with a little Chardonnay and just sitting back looking at Twitter and goes, that's not true, like something like that. Like I just feel like that's what he's doing all day.
He truly doesn't really give a damn what any of us have to say. Let's be honest, but.
I mean, I think he cares. I just think that, I would love to be in the minds of like a David Stearns or Cohen, somebody who owns or runs a team, just because they know everything that's going on. Obviously, we don't. And oh man, I would just love to be a fly on the wall, just one day in a room, just having a conversation, just listening to the conversations. But yeah, when it comes to the DH guys, you're preaching to the choir here. I want Justin Turner. I've said this for a while. I love the high batting average. I love that he can, you make a mistake, he'll hit it over the wall. But one thing that I think this team lacked last year was the fact that we got people on base, we could not drive them in. You know why? Because what was the problem? They couldn't put the bat on the ball. They either struck out or they hit a soft ground ball to the shortstop, soft fly ball to the outfield. Nothing crazy. They couldn't put the bat on the ball. They couldn't make the defense make mistakes. Justin Turner does that. Not only, and if Justin Turner can't hit, what else is new? The DH is empty again. We're used to it, right? That's when you give Vientos a chance, in my opinion. He's going to be on the team anyway. And if Justin Turner doesn't hit and he's all of a sudden gets old, you know what he can do? He can still play first base. He can play third base. He could still play a defensive position. So he's not a waste like a Vogelback was, like Vientos is. Let's be honest. If Vientos don't hit, what are you going to do with him? Now his value goes down even more. What are you going to do? Send him back to the minors and he's going to be a career minor leaguer? Great. We got more of it. We have enough of those. So in my opinion, Vientos is not good enough where if he fails as a DH, they're not putting him at third base. They're not going to, back him up behind Pete Alonso. He can't play any other position. He's just Vogelback, who, if he doesn't hit, he's pointless. And that's why I like Justin Turner the most. I know the sexy power from Soler people love, yet all I heard for the last 2 seasons was Met fans wanting JD Martinez. Yet he's not as old as Justin Turner, but he has a very bad back problem, and it could flare up at any moment. And the last thing we need is to have a guy that has a great April, and then his back flares up, and now that protection that Pete Alonso had is gone. I think Justin Turner, you're not looking for that big time power that a lot of people want, which is nice. Again, I always go back to Kyle Schwarber. Everybody loved Kyle Schwarber, yet he can hit 40 home runs out of his 600 at bats, but he bats 198. Like I can't deal with that. I really can't deal with a guy that, if he does, anytime he puts the bat on the ball, it's a home run, but it's few and far between. Give me a guy that I know when there's runners on, he can hit you, he can knock one over the wall, and he can drive them in, because Justin Turner is a gap-to-gap hitter. He puts the ball in play. He will get those runs in. Look at his home runs. He barely hit over 20 home runs, yet he had 96 RBIs. How did he do that? By putting the ball in play. By when there's guys on, he made sure they got in by any means necessary. That's why I want Justin Turner. You can say whatever you want about his age, right? You could have said that last year about his age, the year before that about his age. That's all we talk about, is age. We're too concerned about looking at the age from a pitching perspective because we got so burned by Verlander and Scherzer that we're so scared of a 37, 38, 39-year-old. Yet you had Miguel Cabrera at 40 years old, still hitting 300, not hitting a lot of home runs, but guys don't lose their ability to hit at an older age. Now, I'm not saying that, a Justin Turner who can hit 35 home runs, sleeping when he was a Dodger, but he's still a guy that's a pure hitter. And I don't think now he might be a little less quicker with the glove. I'll give you that. But I don't think the age kills the bat as much as people are believing. Maybe it kills the power a little bit, but not the average. I think when you're a pure hitter, you're a pure hitter. And I think that's what Justin Turner is. And I think that's what we have to look at when it comes to that. But probably it'll be Vientos, unfortunately.
Go look at Jorge Soler's RBI numbers, 75 last season. Look at him before that up until 2019, that period between 2019 and 2023. I mean, Justin Turner knows how to drive in these runs, and he's been doing at an efficient clip. And I agree with you. The age is just but a number right now. For a DH that's going to have 3 to 4 at-bats every single day and not see the field all too often, come on now. I mean, it's not the same situation like Verlander or Scherzer at all.
That's true, but I do also, I see the fear. I mean, let's face it, when the Mets sign these older guys, whether it be a pitcher, a hitter, what have you, somehow, even though they can have a career year the year before they got here, they come here and shit hits the fan, whether it be an injury or what have. So I get it. I get the concern. Like, I'm not above or beyond being concerned. Like, it's valid. Like, I get it. Like, you see a guy that's 36 years old, 38, 39, whatever. Like you said, Rob, Martinez, yeah, he had a great year last year. if we get him, am I going to complain? No. But he does have back issues, and you never know when those are going to flare up.
Yeah.
Justin Turner's been relatively healthy, but again, when you got older guys, they can be brittle. But Soler is a younger guy, and he's brittle, so it all kind of cancels itself out. I think the problem is with Soler is you're not going to get. I mean, I don't see a world where he's coming here on a 1 to 2 year deal. And I don't think we're giving him 3 years. Like, so that's what it's just not happening. So if you're looking for a 1 or 2 year deal, it has to be Turner or Martinez, I think. But at the end of the day, I'm with you, Rob. I really do think that Vientos might just end up being the guy, and it is what it is. It's looking more. I mean, the longer it shakes out, it's looking like this is just a roster we're playing with. We might sign like a fringe guy here or there, but. Yeah. I mean, but who knows? I mean, we could wake up tomorrow and who the hell knows what could happen. So we'll see.
We all know Teoscar Hernandez is going to get a 4-year deal, and he signed for a little over $20 million, $23 million for 1 year. So I mean, maybe it's possible. I think if the market comes back to the Mets or at least anywhere, I think teams are going to be more willing. But you know what? If you're an organization and you're afraid of history or the past or just scared of signing anybody because if this happens, if you're afraid of injury or afraid that he's not going to be good for you, then don't sign anybody at all and just bring up every kid from the minor leagues and hope they work out. I mean, be the Baltimore Orioles of New York. You might as well. Because, like, I always see it as this. I hate when people are like, oh, he's too much of a risk. Like, a lot of people complained about Luis Severino when we signed him. Yeah, it's a risk, but, I mean, if they would have got another guy. Say if they would have got Lucas Giolito, right? He's not a risk. Of course, he's a risk. He's a risk because he might stay healthy, but he might not be a very good pitcher. He might have another 4 or 5 ERA, and then you got a guy that's healthy, but is not giving you anything on the mound. At least with Severino, you have upside where if he's healthy, he can pitch you a 3 ERA. I always see it as, you know what? I think you got to throw history to the side because a Jason Bay sign-in shouldn't stop you from making any other sign-in or any a Max Scherzer sign-in shouldn't make you scared to sign a Blake Snell, even though he's younger and he might not be trusted. If Blake Snell comes back and says, listen, I want to stay in the National League. I don't want to go to the American League, whatever, whatever he might say, hey, listen, the Yankees gave me this offer. I'll go to the Mets for this offer. If it's 5 years, 150, you wouldn't take that deal. I'd rather have 5 years than 7 or 8 from Blake Snell. And you're going to get at least 2 or 3 pretty good years and a guy that can be at the top of your rotation. I would be scared every time he goes on the mound, but he does still miss bats, even though he walks a ton as well. But when he walks the guys, he doesn't bring them in. So it is very interesting to look at, but I just say it. If you think the guy can help this team, no matter if there's concerns or not, do it. I think we're too gun shy in baseball, and I think that's the reason why of a slow offseason, because I think teams are gun shy. They're so concerned about the what if factor that they're not really making priority number one, which is, does that player make you better now? Because you're so worried about year 6 or 7 or year 3 or 4 that you forget about year 1 or 2. And I think that's the issue that I think a lot of teams are dealing with right now. And, Boris has everybody as a client. So I think that doesn't help the issue as well. All right, guys. So, again, Nelson, I'm sorry.
I just wanted to say one last thing. I think you're absolutely right. Like, pretty much any free agent signing that's more than a 1-year deal is a risk, right? Like, it doesn't matter their age or what have you. Any baseball player, especially pitchers, you're running a risk. It's a ticking time bomb, these guys' arms. Yeah. So what David Stearns has to do is calculate that risk and weigh whether or not he thinks these guys are worth it, right? I think if any of these guys fall within the years, the price that he deems worth it, he would sign them. But when you got guys like Snell looking for, I think I saw the latest report, he wanted 6 years, 270 or something crazy like that. It's not going to happen. Like, David Stearns is smart enough to not do something crazy like that. So it's just you just got to wait and see. And I'm fine with his approach.
Yeah, and Boris is waiting for like the desperate team. But there's so many desperate teams out there. How many more teams still need pitching, right? I mean, all around the league. Like the desperate part of teams are there. I'm sorry, I can't give 6 years 270 or even 6 years 200 to Blake Snell. Like I would sign him to a 5-year deal because I would probably have to rely on, all right, give me 2 close to Cy Young seasons, and then 3, 4, and 5, I'll throw my hands up and be like, all right, let's see what happens.
My bad. I think I have to rephrase. It was actually 9 years, 270. That's even to me. That's worse. Yeah. Like I'm not giving Blake Snell 9 years. That's
no. I think Cole is the last. Well, Otani, but Cole is the last one that's going to get a massive, crazy contract like that because you ain't going to get young pitchers that are available that dominant in the free agent market. If you get a dominant possible ace of a staff that's 26 years old, yeah, you might give a 10-year deal to because you're probably, he's going right into his prime. But yeah, it's kind of hard to think about these crazy ass contracts they're thinking of. But that's Boris. Boris has basically a team of clients that he's using Montgomery, a team with Montgomery that wants Montgomery or Snell. He's using both of those players against the team. And it's not going anywhere. And I think that's the other problem too. So bullpen targets, guys. Another interesting thing that Stearns talked about. He says he's always looking for bullpen, always looking for pitching. I think if the Mets really do anything, if they have to put it at the top of the list, it is bullpen. I want another lefty. I think it's very silly in the National League East when you got really scary lefties in the NL East that you only have one lefty because the lineup, teams can combat that and say, all right, well, you want to use your lefty now. Well, I'm good for the next couple of innings. I don't have to worry about, pinch hitting for one of these guys or not, or, worrying about where I'm going to put these guys in the lineup because you only got Rayleigh. I think we need a lefty. I don't care who it is, to be honest with you. All the names you talked about, the Matt Moores, the Aaron Loops, any lefty, Wandy Peralta, doesn't matter to me. Get one of them. What it does, it gives the opportunity to Mendoza to use a lefty whenever he sees fit. If he needs one in the 6th, in the 8th, or the 5th in the 8th, 5th in the 7th, he has the option. If you only have one lefty, you kind of have to go deep dive into your analytical book and think where is the best spot to use them. If he uses them in the 7th and he gets through it, or he does get through it, even if he does, and then, the 9th inning pops around, it might be a tie game. Now you don't have a lefty. You're going to use a righty that's quote unquote good against lefties. And then he takes you deep. And then you're going to be like, well, if you had another lefty, you might survive. So, Chris, top bullpen targets. Where are we going to go here? Give me one. Is it going to be just a Robinson type of situation where it's going to be just a righty and they're not really looking at lefty-righty situation? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think probably it would be David Robertson, although John in the chat, I'm not sure if it was an actual report, said that the Mets are looking at Robert Stevenson, who is a great option on the market too. Yeah. And I would be definitely happy with that. But I think David Robertson on a cheap 1-year deal is definitely something that I've been projecting. If we talk about a lefty-righty, you asked me what my sort of ideal scenario and the most likely scenario that I could see playing out if the Mets go ahead and grab 2 would be Wandy Peralta on the left-handed side and David Robertson on the right-handed side. That being said, if M Easy's still in the chat, a little bit of a new report that came out just a couple days ago surrounding Hector Neris broke my heart because he's 35 years old and he's still looking for a 3-year deal, which would presumably put the Mets out of contention for Hector Neris in the 8th inning. And I know M Easy is very happy about that. So, but regardless, yeah, I mean, if you're looking at a cheap option and to the cheap options on the market, you can go ahead and sign an Aaron Loop if you need another lefty, and hope he replicates a fraction of what he replicated in 2021 with the New York Mets in that historic season for him. And on the right-handed side, I think it's David Robertson, honestly. A reunion. We know how good he was in New York the first half of last season. We know how much he liked New York and his teammates, and I think that just makes perfect sense. My ideal target from the left-handed side, given the sample size over the last 3 years, is Wandy Peralta. I think he is obviously predominantly an off-speed pitcher, but does have that roaring fastball at 95 miles per hour that he always possesses and can utilize. So I like Wandy Peralta, but like I said, when we take into a consideration all of these reports that we've been hearing, not only from Andy Martino, but also just listening in directly to David Stearns and to Nelson's point earlier, and thinking that this might be the team that we just go ahead and roll with. I think the most, I guess, realistic sort of thought process right now is the Mets going a little bit more on the cheaper side for the bullpen if they do go ahead and sign at least one arm, and that would be your Robertsons and Loops of the world. Would they be my first preference on this market? In this market, no. Another name that I absolutely love in terms of a right-handed relief pitcher is Ryan Stanek, coming over from the Astros organization. But like I said, I just don't know what these relievers are expecting. If Hector Neris is expecting a 3-year deal at 35, given his success over the last couple seasons in Houston and turning his career around over there, then I can only imagine what some of these other names are going to want as well. And that gets into a little bit of a murkier territory when you're talking about the 2024 New York Mets offseason, and given what the plan has been so far this offseason. So that's my 2 cents in the bullpen.
Yeah, and you know what? I think Met fans would be happy with a bullpen arm that's a major league deal. We might get excited about that instead of 47 minor league deals. But Nelson, who do you want? Give me an arm. Anybody. Major league deal. Sign him now. Bring him to the snow.
I honestly don't even. I like Stanek. I'm not a Neris guy. I don't. I don't know if it's because of his tenure in Philly just really is like burned into my brain, and I just hated him as a Philly, and I don't care what he did with the Astros. I just he's not a guy I want to see wearing a Met uniform. Like I just don't. I don't even know who else. Like bringing Robertson back, I guess could work. Honestly, it really comes down to what these guys are looking for. Like, there's some reason this market isn't moving. If everybody wants like 2, 3, 4-year deals, then we're probably not getting anybody. Because let's face it, Stearns has been pretty steadfast, and he's looking for 1 to 2 year contracts, and that's all we're signing. Like we're not signing long-term deals. Could we see a trade for a back end arm? I mean, that's not out of the realm of possibility, I guess. I don't know who that is. Like, I know there's a lot of arms out there that I like. I don't know if anybody's willing to move anybody. Like, like the Pirates are freaking nut jobs, and I don't know what they're doing over there. Their pitching staff sucks. They have David Bednar, who would probably cost quite a bit, but man, if you could throw him in the back of the bullpen, that would be amazing. So, but I don't know if that's probably unrealistic. I don't know, man. Like it just really seems like we're waiting for prices and to drop and years for guys wants to drop, and if that happens, then we will probably see a signing or two. But if it doesn't, then we may just roll out there with the cast of characters in the bullpen that we got. And I don't hate it, because you never know with these guys. Like, we signed so many minor league deals with these bullpen guys. Who knows? One of them could end up being another Aaron Loop and have a career year. Like, it could happen. We do have Diaz back. We do have Rayleigh back there. I don't even want to talk about Drew Smith, but he's still around. So there's guys. I don't know. It just it sucks, because like you want to see the team keep improving, but there does seem to be a very steadfast plan, and that we seem to be set to stick to. And if that's the case, it's hard to see where we're gonna find the fit. And then if you go back to an older Martino report, if it's still relevant, if we really only have $10 million to spend, then we ain't signing anybody for $10 million. So I mean, that could be all BS too. It's Martino, we know that. But if there's any truth to that, then the roster we have is pretty much what we're stuck with, I feel like.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. So, we got a couple of minutes left here. We got 2 more topics, but let's do a rapid fire type of for the two topics. With do you think the rotation is set? And I'll start with you, Chris. If you think the rotation is set, just pivot right to who do you think is going to make the Mets roster, if not opening day, but the first prospect to make an impact or at least make the team or pop up this season in 2024? Acuna, Gilbert, Vazel, Williams, or somebody else? What do you think, Chris?
Yeah, just the rotation piece. I'm just gonna end it at that. Is that yes, I think it's set. I don't think that we pull any major trades. Like we've been speculating over the last couple months. I don't think that's in our timeline right now. Go check out my previous video today. There's a pitcher that's on the Milwaukee Brewers that I would love to trade for. Not named Corbin Burns, but that wouldn't happen until next offseason, given the sort of payroll situation and the name that you would also have to take on in relation to him. So I don't think that there's any other worthy free agents that would fit the Mets' sort of budgetary constraints that they've been showing this offseason as well. So I think the starting pitching rotation, for better or for worse, I'm not confident in it just because of the lack of sample size from guys like Luis Severino and Jose Quintana. Like I'm not confident in this rotation, right? But I think it's serviceable if all things remain consistent and we see a jump in terms of the productivity from Severino and Manaya. And, you know, if Quintana can consistently do what he did in the second half when he came back from that injury. But regardless, I think the rotation is set if I had to guess right now. Moving on before I get out of here, I am on a time constraint right now. Acuna, Gilbert, Vasil. This is a tough question. I want to say Drew Gilbert because that's my favorite prospect in the farm system. I've been saying that for months. In David Stearns' interview, it surely seemed like he was very high on Acuna and Gilbert being the first to be ready. I wouldn't discount Mike Vasil, although Christian Scott's name is also appearing now in terms of having that sort of debut type season in 2024. I know he's in Double A and he's going to start there, but also don't discount Christian Scott. I want to go with Mike Vasil, but I'm going to stick with my guy and say Drew Gilbert. I think that he is going to make the first major impact for this team moving forward. But that's maybe my bias just speaking. If Brett Baty finds himself in an injury type situation, I don't like to talk about injuries. I don't take it lightly. I don't wish it upon anybody. And I really do like Brett Baty in terms of turning that page in his career this upcoming season. If anything should happen to Mr. Baty, I would see a little bit of a window period of Joey Wendell coming up, but immediately thereafter, I want to say maybe 2 weeks to 3 weeks after that, depending on the severity of what transpires, right? Whatever happens to Baty, this is just a hypothetical scenario, then I would see a guy like Luis Angel Acuna. But Brett Baty, that's his position. He's going to be there, and hopefully he has a healthy season and a successful season because, like, I'm rooting for the kid. Everybody's on his back. And for better or for as fair as it is or not fair as it is, he hasn't played 162 full games in the MLB. So that's what I'm going to go with. I know that's kind of a roundabout answer, but off the top of my head, most immediate impact, Drew Gilbert. Would it surprise me to see 3 of these guys make their debuts of the 4? No, absolutely not. I think that we can see, especially going into that MLB trade deadline August 1st, if the Mets, like you said all along, Rob, on all these Hot Stove Lives, get into a sort of scenario where it's a wait and see. And if they falter in the first half and start trading off those 1-year movable pieces, these kids are going to get their opportunity, especially guys that are starting off in AAA or already there. Acuna, Gilbert, Vasil, and Jet Williams is not far behind. So I can see a 3-for-4 or a 4-for-4 situation here of all these guys making their debuts if things go awry this season for the Mets. So that's what I'll leave it all with. And that's why I keep saying, regardless whether or not the Mets truly are competitive in this bridge year, I know we all want the Mets to win ball games, and I know we all want to see the Mets in the playoffs. If something happens drastically where there are just a terrible team, which is certainly plausible as well, and it could happen, right? That's not out of the realm of possibility. At least at the very minimum, we're going to see these kids, and that's exciting within itself. So I appreciate everyone tuning in. Like I said, I'm going to hop out of here. I appreciate you all. Thank you so much for the time, for the ability to be on here consistently with you guys, talking Mets baseball, trying to keep it objective. And like Mark is saying in the chat here, patience is key. I know that it is very hard to find within this Mets fan base, but patience is key. So I appreciate it. Thank you all so much. And until the next time, like I said, I'm out of here a little bit early working with a time constraint, but you guys still got it. And I appreciate it. Let's go Mets, guys. Peace out.
Awesome. Have a good night, buddy. Yeah. And Nelson, when it comes to rotation, do you think it's set? And who do you think is going to be the first one to pop up? Or you think, all of these guys are going to pop up? What do you think?
Yeah. I hope the rotation isn't set, but I think it is. I've said I would love to see us acquire somehow. More than likely, it would have to be via trade. A guy that could kind of fit in and towards the top of the rotation, but I don't see it at this point. As far as the prospects, like Chris, I can see a world where all four of them hit the major league squad this year.
Yeah.
But the first one, I have to say Acuna, just because he's the only one on the 40-man roster, right? And yeah, you can make room on the 40-man. That's obviously the 40-man isn't set in stone, but to me, it's just easier when the guy is already on the 40-man to call him up, right? So I can see a world where if Brett Beatty doesn't perform, right? Is there a world where you consider shifting McNeil to third base and bringing up Acuna to play second? Is there a world where Harrison Bader or Marte or somebody get hurt and you shift McNeil to the outfield and bring up Acuna and let him play second? Like, stuff like that can happen because McNeil is versatile enough to play around the field. It's probably not the most ideal thing, but would you rather play Joey Wendell like all day, every day? Probably. I wouldn't think so. So I could see scenarios where they consider, if they're in a tough spot, if they consider moving McNeil around and bringing up Acuna if Acuna is performing in the early months down in the minors, which I know a lot of people kind of, I won't say a lot, but quite a few people I've seen have kind of soured on Acuna a little bit just because of his rough patch when he came over after the trade. But I still think the kid has potential, right? Like, and that dude had an 800 OPS when he was in Texas. Like, that's not, I just don't think that disappeared out of the blue. I just think it was an adjustment period moving over to a new organization. And I want to see what he can do, like starting the year with the squad and playing in spring training and seeing what they saw in him, because they obviously saw that there was some talent there. So I don't know. I can see any of these guys really coming up. Probably Jet's the furthest away. He just hit AA at the end of last year. But he's flying up the system. So while he may not debut this year, there is a possibility where he be a September call up. Like, if he keeps playing to the level he was last year, that dude was freaking amazing. So and he's got something that he's got an eye that not a lot of kids have. Like, his eye at the plate is phenomenal. So I love Jet Williams. I think he's going to make the biggest impact of all these guys at some point, whenever he does come up. But yeah, I don't think any of them will break camp unless there's like real big injury problems. I don't think anybody's breaking camp with the team. But if I had to guess, I'm guessing Acuna is the first guy up. But Gilbert would be my second choice just because our outfield is very fragile. He is in AAA already. And at some point, we're probably going to need an outfielder. Let's be honest. It's hard to believe that Bader and Marte and even Nimmo are all going to stay healthy all year. It's hard to see that happening. So that's where I'm at.
Yeah, and it's funny because like I was thinking about this. That's why I brought it up, because it is an interesting topic. I think Acuna is going to be up. I think Bader's going to get hurt rather early because that's just his MO. I think Nimmo's going to go back to center. I think McNeil's going to go to left. And because Acuna's on a 40-man, and I know that can change rather quickly over spring training when guys get knocked off the 40-man, get cut and stuff like that, I think Acuna is going to be up here rather early. I think the bad thing would be like, oh, let's just play I don't know, Tyrone Taylor in left field. They're not doing that because you're only going to hurt your bench. So I do think Acuna is going to be up rather early. I think Beta's going to get hurt. He'll probably look nice. He'll make a couple of nice catches in April, and then he'll pull a hamstring, and he'll be out 2, 3, 4 weeks. And I think that's the perfect time to put up Acuna when he's on your 40-man, see what he's got. And I know a lot of people are down on him, like you said, Nelson, because of the fact that the transition. He was very good in the Texas system, but we have to understand. I know he's Acuna's brother, but he's not the power hitter his brother is, at least not yet. He is a speed guy, top of the lineup guy. I think he's a guy that could probably bat 260, 270. He could probably hit you about between 15 and 20 home runs. But he's gonna be a spark plug for a lineup at the top of the order. That's what I see him as. I see him as like a Nimmo type, bringing that spark that can develop into a guy that when he figures things out can hit that 20, 25 home run mark like Nimmo was starting to do now. I think that's what you can see from Acuna. And again, as a second baseman, you don't project the second baseman to be a 35 home run guy. Like, I know that's like, a stereotypical, back in the day type of second baseman where your second baseman, is a grinder. But I don't think he's going to, I don't see him as a bad prospect or a guy that might not turn out because he doesn't provide power. You're going to get that from Gilbert most likely and Jet Williams, who look like they're going to be projected to be the 25, 30 home run guy. And I do think Jet Williams and Gilbert are going to be the guys that are going to be the mainstays in this organization for a while. I just truly believe that. But I think Mike Vasil is going to make this team somehow out of spring training, either in the bullpen or in the rotation. I think he's going to surprise a lot of people. I know a lot of people project him to be a number 3 or a number 4, maybe best number 2. I think he's going to win the 5th job. I don't know why. I feel like Hauser is probably going to be a guy that I think would be probably best in a long man type of guy in the bullpen. Even he's done that with the Brewers and a spot start here and there. But David Stearns said it. He's going to give these young guys a chance. If they show something in spring training, like Brett Beatty, who was just killing it in spring training last year, if David Stearns was running things, Brett Beatty would have been playing third base over Escobar last year. And I think that hurt Beatty last year mentally. I know that's sad to say as a guy who's a top prospect, but these guys are human. So in my opinion, I think Mike Vasil is going to find his way on the 40-man and is going to make the opening day roster either in the bullpen or as a rotation arm going forward. And I think he's going to surprise us. I think we're more concerned about, Tidwell and Scott and even Hamill. Vasil is going to surprise a lot of people. He's not a guy that is going to surprise a lot of people. He's not going to blow people away, but he's got 4 pitches. And I like pitchers that got 4 pitches because they can use it and he's a guy that doesn't walk a lot of people, and he's a guy that can use any pitch in any count. And those pitchers are dangerous, in my opinion. So, Nelson, final thoughts for tonight as we wrap up the hot stove. What movie do you think is going to happen prior to, I guess, spring training at the very least? What do you think? And let everybody know what's going to happen with your channel for the next couple of weeks.
I probably we signed somebody else for the bullpen. That's the only move that seems likely to me. Everything else seems like a stretch at this point. As much as I'd love a DH, and I've said it time and time again. So the bullpen piece or 2 I could see happening. And that's pretty much it, man. I think mostly our roster's filled out. I do agree with you that Vasil could be better than I think people are giving him credit. I'm on record as Christian Scott's my favorite arm in the minors. I know he's further away, but I think he has ace stuff. I don't think Vasil does. I think Vasil's more of a back end of the rotation guy, but he could surprise you. You never know. I mean, nobody thought Jacob deGrom wasn't a big-time prospect that anybody thought was going to be a Cy Young Award winner, right? He was a freaking shortstop converted to a pitcher that came up and surprised everybody. So you truly never know. We can have a guy that we're not even talking about down in the minors that comes up and stuns us. That's always a possibility. It's not likely. It's not something you want to bank on, but it can happen, right? So we'll see what happens. As far as the channel, please, if you haven't subscribed already, if you could jump over after this is over and subscribe to the channel, it's greatly appreciated. I try to do daily videos. Lately, my internet's been really spotty because of the weather out here in Amish land. And if you don't know about Amish land, when it comes to utilities like power and internet, if you are surrounded by Amish people, you are the last on the list to get anything repaired because they don't use that stuff. So when your power goes out, your internet goes out, everybody's going to all the utility companies are going to the places where people actually use the stuff. So when your neighbors are all Amish, nobody cares to come help you out. So if I've been missing, I apologize. I'm going to try to keep the channel updated as much as possible. Also, I mean, the Mets aren't providing that much news. I'm probably going to be talking about guys in the minors a lot more here coming up, just because if we're not signing anybody, what the hell is there to talk? We just keep talking about the same thing over and over. And let's be honest, it's fun, but at the same time, it gets a little old. So I'm trying to keep things fresh. Appreciate, again, everybody watching. Appreciate you, Rob, doing this and us getting together as much as possible. So thank you all. And I hope everybody has a great night. And we'll talk to you guys soon.
Absolutely. And that is, you can follow him on Amish Country Mets Fan on X. Subscribe to his channel, guys. Come on. What are you waiting for? And I'll be doing a video probably over the next couple of days about the Mets top 5 prospects and just breaking them down a little bit, my favorite prospect, and who do I think that you guys can expect over the next in 2024 and 2025. So another Mets hot stove in the books. And don't forget to subscribe to Chris's channel as well, CP New York Sports Network as well. Another Mets hot stove in the books, guys. You guys held it down in the chat. Nelson, I always appreciate it, buddy. Stay warm, stay cold. Keep those pigs hanging out with you in the background in your videos. I always appreciate that. With that said, everybody have a great night. Let's go Mets. See you next time, guys. Have a great night.
Let's go Mets. Peace.
Where do they go? To meet the Mets! Oh, they're hollering and cheering and they're jumping in their seats. Where do they go?